You know, when someone wrongs you today, like really deeply wrongs you, there is this almost immediate visceral urge to just gather the
Oh,
receipts.
absolutely. Screenshot everything, man.
Exactly. You want to build your case and prove to the world exactly how badly you were hurt. It's a very modern reflex, I think, this desire to broadcast our grievances and make sure the person who hurt us gets exactly what is coming to them.
Yeah, you want them to pay.
Right. And today we are taking a deep dive into an ancient text that tackles this exact urge for absolute retribution. But it does it from a completely unexpected angle.
Well, because that instinct for immediate retribution,
Hmm.
while it feels protective in the moment, it actually functions as a trap.
Wait, a trap? How so?
Well, when you are hyper-focused on balancing the scales, you end up setting up camp and living right there in the emotional wreckage of what happened to you. You're essentially allowing the person who caused the trauma to dictate your ongoing emotional real estate.
Wow, yeah, you're giving them free rent in your head. Which is why the stack of sources we have today offers such a fascinating alternative. We're looking at an ancient prophetic text from the book of Ezekiel, specifically chapter 36, verses 1 through 15.
Some heavy ancient literature there.
It is, yeah, but we're pairing it with some modern reflective commentaries titled A Zealous God, with Burning Zeal, and Hope in the Father's Care.
Right. And just to set the tone here, while this source material is deeply theological and biblical, we are strictly exploring it to understand the profound emotional and psychological roadmap it offers.
Yeah, we are not taking a religious stance here, just reporting on the concepts in the text.
Exactly. It's a roadmap for anyone who has ever felt, ridiculed or plundered or utterly defeated.
And that processing starts in a very unusual place, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, the context of Ezekiel 36 is the immediate aftermath of a massive national trauma. The nation of Israel has been destroyed, the people have been exiled, and the land is in absolute ruins.
But the text doesn't begin by addressing the victims, right? Like the displaced refugees or the weeping survivors.
No, it doesn't. In verse 1, God tells the prophet Ezekiel to prophesy directly to the, quote, mountains of Israel.
The mountains.
Yeah, the text specifically addresses the geography.
Okay.
The hills, the ravines, the valleys, the deserted towns.
It's such a cinematic, almost surreal image when you really think about it. I was trying to come up with an analogy for this.
Well, let's hear it.
It's like imagine standing in the remains of a historic family estate that has just burned to the ground.
Okay, yeah.
You're standing in the ashes, but instead of turning to your family to offer comfort, you walk right past them, stand in front of a charred, crumbling brick wall, and just start speaking directly to the ruins.
Right, talking to the bricks.
Yeah. Why address the geography? Why personify the dirt and the hills as if they have ears to hear?
Well, according to the sources, because the trauma wasn't just about the physical displacement of people, it was about the fundamental violation of their space and their identity.
Uh-huh.
The sources highlight the role of the surrounding nations, specifically Edom. Now, Edom wasn't just some random opposing army.
They had history, right?
Oh, a long, bitter, and highly complex history with Israel. They were essentially geographic cousins. And when Israel fell, Edom didn't just passively watch.
They took advantage.
Big time. They actively ravaged and crushed the land from every side. They moved in to take the pasture lands for themselves. So the geography is addressed because the geography was the target of the ultimate insult.
Right. The text zeroes in on a very specific, incredibly painful taunt here.
Yeah, just put that.
The enemies are standing over the destruction and they're saying, aha, the ancient heights have become our possession. The land had essentially become an object of malicious talk and slander.
It is the absolute embodiment of schadenfreude. I mean, the mechanism of scorn here is crucial to understand.
Unpack that a bit.
Well, it wasn't enough for the enemies to just win a military victory. They had to psychologically dominate the devastation. That aha is the sound of someone finding genuine joy in your lowest moment.
That is so toxic.
Right. And psychologically, a betrayal or mockery from a neighbor, someone who knows you, who is in close proximity to you, that creates a much deeper wound than an attack from an anonymous stranger.
Oh, for sure.
The text actually emphasizes that they acted with, quote, glee and with malice in their hearts.
If you bring this out of the ancient world and into our modern lives, that specific type of scorn is just, it's a universally recognized trauma.
Sadly, yes.
Like for you listening right now, have you ever felt like your losses were being celebrated by others with that exact same malicious aha?
It's a horrible feeling.
It really is. Maybe it was a massive professional failure or a public breakup or a moment where your reputation took a hit. And you could feel the people around you, maybe even peers you thought were on your side, quietly celebrating your ruin.
Yeah, it's one thing to lose. It is another thing entirely to be mocked while you are losing. It internalizes the failure.
Exactly. When you hear that aha, it shifts the pain from a tragic event that happened to you into a statement about your inherent worth.
And that raises an immediate, urgent question, which the text tackles head on.
Which is,
When you are the one sitting in the ruins, hearing that malicious glee from your enemies, what is the mechanism for justice?
Hmm.
How do you respond without just destroying yourself in the process?
well, the response outlined in the source actually brings us to a point where I have to stop you and push back a little bit.
Uh-oh. Okay, go for it.
Because the language used to describe the protector's response here is, well, it's highly problematic to a modern ear.
Okay, lay it out.
So, moving from the taunts to the response, verses 5 and 6, describe God speaking in, quote, burning zeal and jealous wrath against the nations that mocked Israel.
Right.
Now, hearing the phrase jealous wrath immediately makes me think of a toxic, insecure ex-partner. That is a massive red flag today.
It totally is.
So why shouldn't I view this ancient text as just, projecting unhealed human anger issues onto a deity?
I mean, that is a completely fair challenge because our modern psychological connotation of jealousy is almost entirely rooted in insecurity, control, and toxicity.
Exactly. When we hear jealousy, we think of someone who is threatened by another person's autonomy.
Right. But the reflection source provided in our stack titled With Burning Zeal unpacks the mechanism of this specific phrasing.
Okay, so how does it reframe it?
It argues this isn't insecure anger. It is a holy jealousy. It's the fiercely protective zeal of an advocate whose boundaries for their loved ones have been violently crossed.
Okay, so less of a controlling partner and more of an immovable guardian.
Precisely. Think about the ferocity of a parent protecting a child from a predator.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We wouldn't call that toxic, right? We would call it a necessary life-saving boundary.
Right, you want that parent to step in.
Exactly. The reflection emphasizes that this burning zeal means the protector sees every slight. God swears with an uplifted hand that the nations who showed scorn will suffer that exact same scorn. He hears every word spoken against the victims, and he treats that violation as a personal offense against himself.
So what you're saying is that vengeance is basically outsourced.
Outsourced vengeance, I like that.
Yeah, like by trusting this fiercely protective advocate to handle the justice, the victim is relieved of the duty to balance the scales themselves. I can see how that frees up an enormous amount of mental bandwidth.
Oh, it does far more than just free up bandwidth. It's a literal psychological survival tactic.
Really?
Yeah, the reflection source highlights that because this zeal ensures the protector will personally deal with the wrongs, you are completely freed from the burden of seeking vengeance.
Because being your own avenger is exhausting.
The psychological toll is massive. It spikes your cortisol, it keeps your nervous system in a perpetual state of fight or flight, and it intrinsically tethers your identity to the person who abused you.
It essentially traps you in their narrative.
Yes. When you don't have to balance the scales, you regain your humanity. You aren't forced to become a monster to defeat a monster.
That's a powerful way to put it.
The reflection states that committing these hurts to God allows you to, quote, continue to reflect the character of Christ, rather than being dragged down into the mud to fight dirty with the people who mocked you. You maintain your moral center because the enforcement of justice has been delegated.
That reframes the entire concept. The jealous wrath isn't a threat to the victim. It is the very mechanism that allows the victim to sleep at night.
Exactly.
So, having established that the protector absorbs the burden of justice, the text naturally transitions to what happens to the victimized space.
Right. We move from the handling of their perpetrators to the restoration of the ruins.
And the promises in verses 8 through 15 are incredibly vivid. The mountains will produce branches and fruit, the ruined towns will be rebuilt, and both people and animals will multiply and prosper more than before.
A total restoration.
But there is a very eerie detail in verses 13 and 14 that we really need to dissect here.
The devouring land.
Yes. The text brings up another specific taunt. The enemies claim that the land itself devours people and deprives your nation of its children.
It's a dark image.
It sounds like something out of a horror movie. What does it actually mean for a landscape to devour its people?
Well, to understand the weight of that taunt, we have to look at how ancient cultures viewed their environment.
Okay.
They didn't view land through a modern, detached scientific lens. just dirt, rocks, and weather patterns. They believed the physical landscape was deeply and symbiotically linked to the spiritual and moral state of the people living on it.
Interesting. So it wasn't just geography to them.
Not at all.
Yeah.
When a land experienced catastrophic famine, war, or total destruction, it wasn't chalked up to bad geopolitical luck. The land itself was viewed as fundamentally cursed. It had become a graveyard.
So when the enemies say your land devours its people, they aren't just saying you lost a battle. They were saying your environment is inherently toxic. Anything you try to plant here, anything you try to build here is destined to die.
Exactly. It is the ultimate statement of systemic hopelessness.
Man, that's heavy.
The taunt is designed to make the victims believe that the flaw isn't just in their circumstances, but in their very foundation. And if you translate that to a modern psychological state, a devouring land is any environment that constantly strips you of life.
Like what, for example?
Well, it could be a highly toxic workplace where every innovative idea is just crushed immediately. Or it could be a deeply dysfunctional family dynamic that consumes all your emotional energy without ever nurturing you. It's a space where your very existence feels like it's being slowly eaten away.
Which makes the response from the sovereign lord in the text so vital. The declaration isn't just that the enemies will be silenced, it's a total radical reversal of the curse itself.
Right.
The text says you will no longer devour people or make your nation childless. The ruins aren't just swept away or bulldozed over, they are repopulated and transformed into a place of life.
The very environment that was known for causing death becomes an inheritance of flourishing.
It's the ultimate expression of post-traumatic growth.
It really is an architectural transformation of the trauma. But, the sources don't just leave us with this grand ancient promise.
No, they bring it right down to earth.
Yeah, the commentary titled Hope in the Father's Care explicitly bridges the gap between this ancient physical restoration and our modern psychological navigation.
Because it's hard to see the promise when you're in the cane.
Exactly. The profound human struggle identified here is that when you are the one sitting in the cursed, devouring land, it is nearly impossible to believe that this promised restoration is real.
Trauma creates a very specific kind of tunnel vision.
It biologically rewires you in the moment.
Right. When you are under intense suffering, your brain's amygdala essentially hijacks your nervous system. You are pushed entirely into immediate survival mode, which literally shuts down your prefrontal cortex's ability to plan for the future, or even imagine a reality outside of the current pain.
You literally cannot see past the present circumstances.
It's like, I think of it like driving in a whiteout snowstorm.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. Your entire reality is just the immediate blinding snow right in front of your windshield. It makes it physically impossible to believe that clear skies exist just a few miles down the road. How do you navigate that?
Well, that neurological reality is exactly what the commentary addresses. The expert solution, pulled directly from the source material's reflection, and especially from the final section titled Letter to God, is that survival in that whiteout requires what navigators call dead reckoning.
Dead reckoning.
Yeah. You calculate your current position based on a previously known position using the charts and maps you made before the storm hit. You navigate by historical data, not by your current compromised vision.
So relying on what you knew in the light when you're stuck in the dark.
Exactly. The source explicitly states that survival requires remaining close to God, looking to his plans, and actively calling to mind past truths.
You have to intentionally force your brain to access long-term memory. You have to recall the specific historical times when you were protected and provided for, rather than allowing your compromised present vision to dictate your reality. So for you listening, let me ask you directly the prompt from the text. What truths can you call to mind when you can't see past your own circumstances?
And importantly, this isn't just toxic positivity. It is a deliberate cognitive override.
Yeah, it's work.
The final letter to God in our stack is incredibly vulnerable in how it frames this. It doesn't pretend that accessing these memories is easy. The very first sentence is an open, raw confession. It says, Heavenly Father, I confess that I sometimes forget your zealous love for me.
I love how that normalizes the forgetting.
It's so relatable.
When the land is devouring you, when you are in the whiteout snowstorm, of course you forget that a fiercely protective advocate is standing guard. The panic is a completely natural physiological response.
It is entirely natural. The letter serves as a template for what to do in that panic. It's a deliberate pivot. It is the act of actively asking for the hope and assurance that you cannot currently muster on your own.
It's a mechanism for turning away from the malicious aha of the enemy and anchoring yourself to the historical track record of the protector's care.
Which takes immense discipline to look at the chart instead of staring into the blinding snow.
Yeah.
But it is the only way to navigate through the ruins.
Let's pull all of these threads together because the arc of this source material is truly profound.
Let's do it.
We started by examining the deep psychological wound of Schadenfreude, standing in the ashes of what used to be, listening to the malicious taunts of people celebrating your downfall.
The worst feeling.
Then we unpacked how outsourcing vengeance to a fiercely protective advocate isn't about projecting toxic anger. It's the exact mechanism that frees us from the exhausting, nervous system-destroying burden of settling the score ourselves.
Right.
We explored the terror of a devouring land and the promise of a radical systemic reversal. And finally, we looked at how we survive the trauma-induced tunnel vision of the present by using the dead reckoning of active memory.
And as we close out our analysis of these sources, there is one final profound takeaway that I think elevates this entire framework.
Oh, I can't wait. What is it?
It has to do with how we view the rubble itself. Throughout Ezekiel 36, the surrounding nations specifically ridiculed the, quote, desolate ruins. They pointed at the broken stones and the charred walls and used them as proof of final, irreversible defeat.
They saw the rubble as a graveyard.
Exactly. But if you look closely at the mechanics of the restoration promised in the text, God doesn't say he is going to sweep the ruins away. He doesn't say he is going to bulldoze the charred stones into the sea and start over on a fresh, untainted plot of land.
Wait, he doesn't?
No. The promise is that the rebuilding happens precisely upon those exact ruins. The desolate mock geography is the very site of the unimaginable flourishing.
That is a staggering shift in perspective.
It's the architectural integration of trauma. Think about the desolate ruins in your own life right now. Think about the massive failures, the catastrophic losses, the mistakes that others might be judging, or the seasons of your life that you feel most deeply ashamed of.
Our natural instinct is to hide the rubble, right? To clear it away, to pretend it never happened so we can build a shiny new life somewhere else.
Because we believe the ruins disqualify us.
Right.
But what if psychological and spiritual resilience isn't about clearing the rubble? What if those exact areas of devastation, the very places where you experience the most intense scorn and the loudest are the literal foundation stones for what comes next?
Oh, wow.
What if the protector intends to use the exact stones of your past failures to build the structure of your greatest future growth and strength?
You don't have to hide the ruins. They are the bedrock.
Exactly.
It completely rewrites the narrative of a ruined life. The devastation wasn't the end of the story. It was the clearing of the ground for an upgrade.
It forces the enemy to watch as the very thing they mocked becomes the foundation of your prosperity. It is the ultimate finalized justice.
What an incredibly powerful roadmap for processing our deepest grievances, surviving our darkest environments, and building upon our most painful failures. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive as we explored this ancient text and its surprisingly relevant psychological depths. We hope you carry that perspective, the freedom of outsourced vengeance, the dead reckoning of memory, and the foundational power of your ruins into whatever devouring landscape you might be navigating today. Catch you next time.